years, and it is the late thousands. And Japanese companies like Toyota are absolutely eating your lunch. For example, the Toyota Camry, a very popular vehicle. How much sales do you think it got in 2006? 448,000. Meanwhile, the Chevrolet Malibu in the same size class barely made it to 200,000 in sales. Literally, the Toyota Camry lapped 1.5 times the Chevrolet Malibu. And the Camry sales were still increasing. So Chevrolet had an issue. They needed to pull a classic American car industry turnaround, like its predecessors have done, especially like Chrysler, with their Cloud cars, with their K cars, and like Chevrolet had done before, with their big SUV revolution. So, GM needed to look at their lineup, and they needed to look at all the brands that they had, and they needed to figure out, how are we going to do this? How are we going to stick it to those guys? We're going to make what the car industry wants. We're going to make small SUVs. We're going to make small sedans. We're going to make more fuel-efficient vehicles, because economic crash, right? This is around that era. So which brand should we use? So they huddled all up together. And they said, you want to know who's going to be the key players here? Chevrolet, Buick, Holden, GMC. Those are going to be the main people. Cadillac, why not? Too expensive. Opel, why not? We'll include them in some stuff, but they're doing okay. Vauxhall, they're doing okay. Bahoun, I've never even heard of that before. So, Holden for Australia, Chevrolet for America, Buick for America, and GMC for America. And they started by doing the classic GM way, by building platforms. They made the GMC Lambodia platform. Here, one second. I need to close off some tabs, otherwise this entire thing is going to crash. They made the GMC Lambodia platform, which gave birth to the Chevrolet Traverse, and Buick Enclave, and GMC Acadia. And then the GMC Delta platform, which they came out around the same time. Now, some of these platforms were out before, but they're repurposing them for new cars. They came out with the Chevrolet Cruze, the Holden Cruze, the Buick Vernando, and then they came out with the Thea platform, and then they came out with the GMC Terrain, and the Chevrolet Equinox, and then they had the Gamma platform, and they came out with the Chevrolet Trax, and the Holden Trax, and the Opel Mokka, and the Vauxhall Mokka, and the Buick Encore, and they came out with all of these cars. The only issue is, so why is this bad, right? Let's just get a little overview of the cars first. So with the GM Lambodia platform, they got the Chevrolet Traverse, a pretty decent family-sized car. Still had some older GM parts in it, but it was new, right? It had new technology. It was supposed to be neat. I mean, it looked pretty modern. It had two-tone interior. It had 3 rows. You could have captain's chairs in the back. It was good, and people liked it. The Buick Encore was fancy. People thought it was kind of, a dressed-up version. It was just a nice car. People liked it. People liked the style of it. They really did. And then for the GMC Acadia, this kind of gave the families, there's these families that are truck families, they're SUV families, but they don't really want to buy a Trailblazer. They don't want to buy one of those cars. They just want your normal Manila SUV, but from their favorite car company. That's kind of what this did. It was the usual suburban Manila, usual random car. And all these cars shared similar stuff. They all shared interiors. They all shared many platforms. Let's move on to the GM Delta platform. Also, thank you to GMA Auto Authority, because I'm using their little splash screen here. They came out with the Chevrolet Cruze, which was modern and two-tone, and I forgot to put the year, which was modern and two-tone and neat and cool, and it had all the features buyers wanted them to do. They had the Holden Cruze, which for Australia was the small, little, mighty car that could, neat, a lot of marketing, had the same interior as the Cruze, pretty normal car, very cheap, came in a stick shift. You had the Buick Vernando. It's actually the Fernando. Wow, I thought I was making fun of it. Which was just this neat little small luxurious car which old people would fawn over for decades to come. Then you had the GMC Thea platform. Theta? I'm just going to call it Theta. I'm butchering this completely. Where you had the GMC Terrain and the GMC Terrain's interior and the awesome GMC Terrain performance. And then you had the Chevrolet Equinox, which had already been out for a few years, but I'm using the second generation of the Equinox and the first generation of the Terrain, because those are the only two generations that kind of mesh together. Anyway, and, it had the same interior, but the Chevrolet was blue, and the other one was red. And then you had the Gamma, where you had the Trax with its wonderful, normal, space-saving, weirdo, normal, kind of weird interior. And then you had the Holden Trax, which was weird, and then you had the Opel Mocker, and then the Mocker, and then you had the Vauxhall Mocha. Ugh, it just sounds awful. And then the Buick Enclave for the little luxurious, small little SUV that will, take all your pennies that you've been pinching for your entire lifetime trying to retire. Yeah. So they had the full lineup. So what exactly was the issue here? Well, let's look at all the cars, because since they're on the same platform, they share the same everything. So here, look. The only difference between these cars was price. The front-wheel drive Chevrolet Equinox and the front-wheel drive GMC Terrain were both the same car. They were the same. Aside from exterior features and slight differences, they were the exact same car, and yet the GMC Terrain was $2,000 more expensive. They both had the same amount of horsepower. They both had the same miles per gallon. And yet, one was more expensive. This is just the American versions. We don't have the foreign versions because they don't offer this. So you have the Chevrolet Traverse, the Buick Enclave, and the GMC Acadia. Again, all the same car, except the Buick Enclave is significantly more expensive than the rest. The Chevrolet is the cheapest, and the GMC Acadia is in the middle. And yet, guess what? They all had a gas V6. They all got the same gas mileage, and they all got the same horsepower, except for the Chevrolet, which was dumbed down a little bit. And then let's look at the Trax and Encore. Again, the Encore is $4,000 more expensive. It had the same gas mileage, except for a slight difference. It had the same horsepower and a better warranty. But the issue is all these cars were the same. And let's look at the United States car brands, right? In the United States, we have Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac. We have Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC. And we had all of these cars. We had the blue Buick Enclave. We had the GMC Acadia. We had the Chevrolet Traverse. We had the Chevrolet Cruze. We had the Buick Veranda. We had the Chevrolet thing. We had the GMC thing. We had the Chevrolet Trax. We had the Buick Encore. We had all these cars, and they were all competing against each other. And that was even worse in Australia, where you had the Chevrolet Cruze. Where is it? Where's the Cruze? You had the Chevrolet Cruze competing against the Holden Cruze. They're the same car. This is what drove GM dead. These stupid platform cars, which we're all used to, that's what they thought they would do. They had all these cars competing in the same markets for similar prices, although some were different, and that just caused chaos. Instead of competing with other car brands together and complementing each other, they were fighting each other for market share. It was ridiculous. And now we're left with a bunch of low quality cars with a whole bunch of recalls that are just sitting here. Like this Traverse. It's so sad. Look at all these cars. Just a bunch of these. Just an era that no longer remains. The Chevrolet era where Chevrolet tried to beat everyone else out by making all these platforms and all these cars. And in the end, the only people they ended up beating was themselves. Holden was already bad. Except when you did this crap to them, they were gone. They were blown away. They couldn't compete against other car brands in Australia. Much less themselves or a better funded, slightly less expensive version of themselves. So now what we do have is just a bunch of the same cars. The same cars that are all used, that have all been broken in, that all look at this SUV. It's front-wheel drive. What are you going to be able to do with a front-wheel drive Chevrolet Equinox? There's nothing interesting about it. It can't do off-roading, can't be a normal SUV. You have the Buick Encores that are selling for $4,000. $4,000. That is surprisingly. Also, can we just look at how hideous this is? That's so cheap. You have the Buick Encores, which are selling for cheap. Yeah, all of them were selling for cheap. The Enclave, $4,000. You have a bunch of cheap crap cars that are all just sitting, waiting to find a home. Look at this Fernando. Look at how sad he is. He needs you to buy him. So yeah, that's the story of these stupid of these stupid General Motors Company, GMC, so I was technically right, GMC cars that all ended up competing with each other. You know the platforms that they're on, and if you want one of these cars, the diesel version of the Cruze is very good, but other than that, I really wouldn't recommend them. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. But don't if you don't like my videos, because why would you do that? Pity? No. So